A new report shows that Huawei deliberately created security loopholes when building a data center for the government of Papua New Guinea, leaving the Pacific country's government data open to spies. Chinese leader Xi Jinping is calling on the country to stop wasting food and maintain a sense of crisis over food security. The rare move is sparking concerns over China's potential food crisis. The price of pork in China rose by almost 90% year-on-year, and when 7 tons of pork was scattered on a highway due to a truck accident, locals snatched them up. This happened in one of the provinces worst hit by flooding. Hong Kong froze media mogul and pro-democracy activist Jimmy Lai's million-dollar assets. Hongkongers flooded to a restaurant owned by his son, showing their support. And another activist, Agnes Chow, is hailed as the real Mulan. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo today held a speech in the Czech Senate. He is currently on a Europe trip visiting 4 countries, talking about their past as Soviet countries and today's threats coming from China.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is calling on the young democracies of Central and Eastern Europe to embrace their hard-won freedoms. In a speech to the Czech Senate, he acknowledged threats to those freedoms from Russia, China, and others. America's top diplomat thanked the Czech Prime Minister for the country's military cooperation with NATO. He also denounced the post-election violence and repression in Belarus. Taking particularly hard aim, he said the Chinese regime is an even bigger threat to democracy than Russia.
Today, an even greater threat is the threat posed by the Chinese Communist Party and its campaigns of coercion and control.
Pompeo also touched on the Chinese regime's human rights violations. As examples, he named the communist regime's hard grip on Hong Kong, its attempt to dominate the South China Sea, and the detention of about 1 million Uyghur Muslims in internment camps in Xinjiang. He said Huawei plays a big role in China's oppression.
This is the human rights stain of the century, sustained by companies like Huawei using technology that secret police could only have dreamed up in times gone by.
Pompeo said the CCP is already involved in U.S. and European economies, its politics and society, in ways the Soviet Union never was. He added that the CCP targeted Czech politicians and security forces with influence campaigns, thieved industrial data from the Czech Republic, and suppressed freedom in the country using its economic leverage. But he said freedom will win in the end.
China's world dominance is not inevitable. We're the authors of our fate. Free societies have always been more attractive. Your people know this. Our people do too.
Pompeo told lawmakers in the former Soviet country they should resist the Chinese regime's attempts to claim economic and political leverage. Reflecting on several recent cases in which the Chinese regime threatened Czech officials with retaliation when the country showed support for Taiwan, Tibet, and Hong Kong. His speech comes as part of a tour of the region, focused on concerns about European energy dependence on Russia and about security in advanced Chinese-owned telecommunications networks.
In his speech in the Czech Republic, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said confronting the challenge of the CCP requires more than that against the former Soviet Union. And he called on other countries to speak clearly to their people without fear and to take on that challenge.
That's because the CCP has already enmeshed in our economies, in our politics, in our societies in ways the Soviet Union never was. And Beijing is not likely to change course in the near future, although one lives in hope. No one thought the Berlin Wall would fall. Both parties in Washington agree on very little, but on this, we all know what we're up against. You know, I spend a great deal of time talking to members of both of our political parties. The tide has turned, just as I see it turning here in Europe as well. The West is winning. Don't let anybody tell you about the decline of the West. That is false. That is their narrative. I've heard the same observations from political leaders across the spectrum, most recently in London. Those meetings reminded me that there are plenty of European leaders eager to lean into freedom. We have the obligation to speak clearly and plainly to our people, and without fear. We must confront the complex questions presented by this challenge, and we must do so together.
The U.S. State Department said on Tuesday that more than 30 countries and territories have joined the Clean Network Initiative. According to the department, the program works to safeguard the nation's assets, including private information from individuals and companies from aggressive foreign intruders. It was created to address the long-term threat to data privacy, security, human rights, and principled collaboration posed to the free world from authoritarian regimes, like the Chinese Communist Party or CCP. It aims to clean and secure various areas of the tech sphere, including apps, the cloud, data carriers, and cable. As for the 30 countries that have signed on, there are the traditional U.S. allies and European Union countries of Australia, Canada, Israel, the UK, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, and Greece. From Asia, Japan, Taiwan, and Vietnam are also on the list. Some Eastern European countries have also joined in, like the Czech Republic, Latvia, Romania, Poland, Slovenia, Estonia, and Albania, among others. The State Department added that many large telecommunications companies are now becoming clean telecoms. So far, all 5G telecoms companies in Canada, Norway, Vietnam, and Taiwan are refusing to do business with the CCP-controlled operations like China's Huawei. While in some other countries, including France, India, Australia, and Japan, part of their telecom companies have decided against working with Huawei. Now to Hong Kong. Local media reported that after the Hong Kong media mogul and democracy activist Jimmy Lai's arrest on Monday, Hong Kong police froze his assets worth around $6.5 million. The move was carried out by the City Police Force's new department, established to enforce Beijing's national security law. The Hong Kong-based Beijing-run security office said on Tuesday that it supported Lai's arrest. Lai has since been released after submitting nearly $40,000 in bail and over $25,000 in personal guarantees. On Tuesday, Hong Kongers flooded to a restaurant owned by Jimmy Lai's younger son, who was also arrested under the security law. Police raided the restaurant on Monday and seized the computer they found there. Residents say they were angered by Lai's arrest and Beijing's threats to Hong Kong's press freedoms. They said they wanted to show support and solidarity. And elsewhere in the city, Hong Kong activist Agnes Chow has a new rallying cry. Like Lai, the 23-year-old was also arrested under Beijing security law. Soon after, supporters rallied on Twitter, calling her the real Mulan. Fellow pro-democracy activist Denise Ho wrote on Twitter, "Our Mulan, our pride." Others posed a comparison, asking who the real Mulan is. Freedom fighter Agnes Chow or actress Liu Yifei, who plays Mulan in Disney's live remake, but supports China's authoritarian regime. Actress Liu Yifei came under fire last fall after expressing support for Hong Kong police on social media. Many accused her of supporting police brutality. Many people were outraged, saying Mulan in the ancient Chinese legend was a true heroine who disguised herself as a man to take her aging father's place in the army, fighting to save her family and country. And it's not just the pro-democracy protesters who are outraged over the film. Disney's choice to stream Mulan angered a lot of cinema owners. In a video posted by a French film account, one cinema owner is seen destroying a Mulan pop-up. Movie theaters have been forced to absorb a massive blow from lockdown measures amid the pandemic. Many of them hoped blockbuster films like Mulan would help funnel money back in. Disney announced the live-action Mulan will be released on Disney Plus starting September 4th for those willing to pay $30 to watch it. In an unusual move, Chinese leader Xi Jinping is urging the country to stop wasting food and maintain a sense of crisis over food security. Our in-house expert says Xi's speech signals that China could be facing an imminent food shortage. NTD's Juliet Song has more.
A recent speech by Chinese leader Xi Jinping is raising questions about China's food security. Xi advised citizens not to waste food and to remain alert to food security issues. It's a rare move from China's top leader.
The subtext of China's top leader calling for people to pay attention to the issue is that China could be facing a food crisis.
Tang says you have to understand how Chinese Communist Party officials communicate, since they often say one thing but mean another.
If the Chinese leader is urging officials to strengthen unity, then it means it is very likely there are already internal divisions. When Xi Jinping says we should save food, he actually means that there's probably not enough food already.
Xi also talked about food security just 3 weeks ago. In July, with southern, southwestern, and central China reeling from its worst flooding in decades, Xi did not appear in public for 20 days. Then on July 22nd, he showed up at a rather unexpected place, Jilin Province in China's northeast, an important grain-growing area. Xi inspected agricultural production there and urged local authorities to make securing food supplies a priority. China has always faced food shortages. It is the world's largest grain importer, importing over 100 million tons of grain every year. But the flooding this year has exacerbated the situation. China has 6 main grain production zones in the south, and most were among the worst-hit areas in this year's disastrous flooding.
Floodwaters submerge large areas of agricultural fields. These fields basically won't see much harvest this year.
China's state grain stockpiler, Sinograin, is one of the world's largest, but the quality of its storage is questionable. A video that went viral across Chinese social media shows corn from Sinograin. The woman in the video says the corn is moldy and mixed with large amounts of foreign matter like dust. In China's southern city of Guangzhou, state media says the grain supply there can feed 1 million people for half a year. The problem is the city has a population of almost 15 million.
If there is a food crisis, the food supply can only last the entire population of Guangzhou for 12 days, based on numbers from state media.
Guangzhou is the capital in China's richest province, and Tang said other areas in China could be even in worse shape. Reporting by Juliet Song, NTD News.
Now we turn to a pair of news stories about pork that garnered attention in China this week. In July, the price of pork in China rose by almost 90% year on year. And compared to June, the pork prices rose by 10%, if the data from a report by China's Statistics Bureau is accurate. According to this report, in July, food prices in China rose by well over 10% year on year. Vegetables were also 6% more expensive than in June. Statistics from China's Agriculture Ministry shows from July 9th to the 30th, a span of less than 3 weeks, the price of eggs surged more than 30%. Corn prices in China rose 20% year on year in July, reaching a 5-year high. Likewise, in the first half of this year, the price of soybeans produced in China has skyrocketed 30% since the end of last year. The figures come from Japanese financial company Nomura Holdings. The second news piece is about 10 tons of pork scattered on a highway. Last week, a truck full of pork was involved in a traffic accident in the southern Chinese province of Jiangsu, one of the worst-hit provinces by recent flooding. Pork was scattered on the highway. Many locals drove trucks and motorcycles to snatch the pork scattered on the road. Of the 10 tons of pork on the truck, 7 of them were robbed, causing a loss of over $40,000. Even the back door of the truck that dropped down due to the accident was taken away by locals. Now we turn to the natural disasters that continue plaguing mainland China. Another tropical storm system is now dumping heavy rain across eastern China, only a week after Typhoon Hagupit's damaging strike on the country. Mikala is the 6th typhoon of the year. Videos posted online show damages in China's southern Fujian province, where a factory building's exterior was being torn down in seconds. The typhoon is expected to continue battering the country. State-run media Xinhua News Agency warned that this week, northern China will face the heaviest rainfall of this year's flood season. And in Beijing, locals are being advised to work at home, while over 100 public transportation lines have been suspended. Authorities say the water levels of several major rivers also remain high. For the last 3 days, a new round of torrential rains, thunder, and lightning has been striking Beijing. In some areas of the city, the wind was so strong that it clocked in as high as 50 to over 70 miles per hour. Cars, bikes, and people struggled to move along some streets as a result. Chinese authorities have issued severe weather warnings for heavy rainfall, mountain torrents, and geological disasters, both in Beijing and Sichuan province. Hundreds of flights have already been canceled. A video captured on Tuesday showed Ya'an City in the southwestern Chinese province of Sichuan as it was hit by even more heavy rain. In the clip, farmland can be seen transforming into lakes. River levels surged, nearly reaching a road as trees reached directly out of floodwaters. At the same time, strong currents flipped some cars upside down. According to local authorities, 6 people died while 5 are missing. In another area in the same province, people were seen wading through waist-deep water. That's as landslides blocked some roads. A new report shows that Chinese tech giant Huawei built a data center for the government of Papua New Guinea. But during its construction, the telecom company deliberately created security loopholes so that data could be stolen.
2 years ago, Chinese telecom giant Huawei built a data center for the government of Papua New Guinea, or PNG. Because of that, the Pacific Ocean was in deep debt to a Chinese state-owned bank, who funded the Huawei project. Now, the data center was found to have serious security vulnerabilities, leaving PNG government data open for spying. A new report by the Australian Strategic Policy Institute suggested that Huawei deliberately created the security loopholes to help China spy on the country. According to an Australian media report, the firewalls and codes Huawei built for PNG government to encrypt their data had already reached their end of life in 2016, 2 years before the center opened. The Australian report is the first to document Huawei's involvement in Beijing's cyber espionage activities. The PNG government hired Huawei 2 years ago despite strong opposition from the US, Japan, and Australia. The country's official at the time said, whatever views Australia or the US might have in relation to cybersecurity, as far as Huawei or China are concerned, those are for the big boys to worry about. We in PNG have no enemies. We would not be that stupid to reject it. Now the country is struggling to repay the $53 million loan to China and seeking funds from Australia to fix the dysfunctional data center. Responding to the report, China's foreign ministry called the report slandering Chinese companies and said that they strongly oppose it. Penny Zhou, NTD News.
New White House documents give a glimpse of what the TikTok ban could look like. It could cripple the app's growth by cutting it from U.S. app stores and advertisers.
Reuters reports new White House documents reveal how President Trump's executive order to ban China's TikTok app could play out. The documents were sent out to reporters last week. They show the order could prevent U.S. app stores from offering TikTok for download, and it would make advertising on the app illegal. Last week, President Trump signed an order banning transactions with TikTok if its parent company ByteDance doesn't sell its U.S. assets to an American company in 45 days. So far, Microsoft has been leading talks to acquire TikTok's operations in North America. The app has about 100 million active users in the United States. Lawmakers cite concerns that TikTok may be sharing American user data with Chinese authorities. TikTok denies the allegations. But China's 2017 national intelligence law requires Chinese citizens and organizations to cooperate with state intelligence work. Bloomberg News reports China will likely bring up TikTok and WeChat with U.S. trade negotiators in the coming days, when they meet to discuss implementation of the Phase 1 trade deal.
The president of Taiwan is focused on building a strong relationship with the U.S. She spoke at an American institute today, addressing her top priorities.
Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen says she wants to focus on starting negotiations for a U.S.-Taiwan free trade agreement.
Good morning to you all.
She spoke at the Hudson Institute and Center for American Progress, identifying several other priorities, including strengthening security between the U.S. and Taiwan, and working with the U.S. to improve relationships with other democratic nations in places like Europe, Asia, and Africa. We spoke with policy analyst Riley Walters at the Heritage Foundation. He says a trade agreement with Taiwan would be ideal, and that we should be engaging with Taiwan more on all levels.
Taiwan just seemed like an ideal candidate. We should be doing more with Taiwan, how the U.S. and Taiwan should engage beyond just trade. We should engage on more economic issues.
U.S. Health Secretary Alex Azar visited Taiwan this week. He said his purpose was to, quote, highlight the deep partnership and friendship between Taiwan and the U.S.
I think Taiwan has handled this pandemic really well, and so that's why Secretary Azar visited. But the growing rise and complications that China has in the region are even more reasons why the United States should be engaging more with our friends and partners in the region, including Taiwan.
President Tsai says her new Taiwanese representative to the U.S. has just arrived in Washington, D.C. to further discussions. Phil Zhou, NTD News.
A journalism master's degree program inside a prominent Chinese university has been receiving generous support from U.S. media outlets. But beneath the surface, the program embraces Marxist values and views. Its graduates are now working with various major media outlets and other companies all over the world.
With names like business news writing and editing and workshop on film and TV production, Tsinghua University's Global Business Journalist program's course list seems similar to most other journalist training programs, at least on its English language website. But for the university's School of Journalism and Communication, which hosts the program, the Chinese language version of the site holds something more. According to the site, University Dean Liu Bingjie says the first priority for journalists is to be firmly in the correct political direction. It adds that the School of Journalism and Communication of Tsinghua University has been actively exploring Marxist teaching and views on news for many years, guiding and training students to observe, select, and handle news events with Marxist positions, views, and methods. The associate dean of the school, Shi Jinping, was also listed by the CCP's Central Propaganda Department in its Talent Engineering Strategy Guide. The top criteria for the talent selection is that one must have excellent ideological and political qualities, a comprehensive grasp of Deng Xiaoping's theory, and the important thought of the three represents the theory of Jiang Zemin is also required. Deng Xiaoping and Jiang Zemin are former Communist Party leaders. Despite its clear beliefs, the school has received support from multiple American companies and media outlets, including Bloomberg, CNN, and the New York Times. U.S.-based political news outlet The National Pulse has exclusively revealed that the university's global journalism program, known as GBJ, has attracted a considerable number of Western supporters. It's all part of an effort to produce Marxist journalism to suit the CCP's needs. This 2-year master's degree program was launched in 2007 by Tsinghua University in Beijing. Another statement posted on the school's official website reads, with the support of founding sponsors Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Bloomberg, Deloitte, and the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the GBJ program is in its 12th year and counts 326 graduates from 60 countries. It continues that these partners have contributed talent, equipment, and internship for students. In addition, global sources sponsor a scholarship program and paid internships for 3 students each year. The official website shows that Bloomberg's founder and CEO Michael Bloomberg met with GBJ students at the Bloomberg News office in Beijing. Others, like CNN host Fareed Zakaria and Facebook Vice President Lori Goller, were among the program's 2017 guest lecturers. One article published by the University School of Journalism, titled A Global News Giant Powers the Global Business Journalism Program, listed how the program has benefited Bloomberg's generous support. Its contributions include courses, internships, memberships, professor visits, and 10 Bloomberg terminals available for students to use free of charge. The 10 terminals make up the largest computer system of its kind in any university in the world. China's Tsinghua University, which works with many U.S. entities and individuals, is a familiar namesake in the intelligence community as well. A 2018 study claims the university is home to the origins of Chinese cyber espionage. According to cybersecurity company Recorded Future, an IP address at Tsinghua is the base of numerous cyber attacks on targets around the world, including the Alaskan state government, German car maker Daimler, and a community of Tibetans in India. Now, GBJ graduates are working all around the globe. Some of them have since joined the CCP's state-run media mouthpieces Xinhua News Agency and China Daily, while others work for the sanctioned Chinese tech giant Huawei and Bloomberg News.
And that's all for today's China in Focus. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow.